Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're diving into a single handshake that is quietly but dramatically redrawing the geopolitical map of South Asia. So get this, in October 2025, something happened that most people thought was pretty much unthinkable. A senior Taliban official actually visited India for formal talks. Now this wasn't just another meeting. Nope, this was a seismic shift in regional politics. So why is this one handshake such a watershed moment? Well, it signals a massive strategic recalibration for the entire region. We're talking about a formal, high-level meeting between two sides that, until very recently, had no official relationship whatsoever.
To be specific, we're talking about Afghanistan's Foreign Minister Amir Khan Muttaqi meeting with India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar. This thing marks an absolutely unprecedented diplomatic reset, and it forces us to ask two huge questions. Why now? And what on earth does it all mean?
To really get the sheer weight of this moment, we have to rewind the clock a little bit. You see, before the Taliban stormed back into power in 2021, the relationship between India and Afghanistan looked completely and totally different.
Before the takeover, India was a massive player in Afghanistan. I mean, they were one of the largest regional donors, investing billions in everything from dams to highways. They strongly supported the democratic government, provided tons of aid, and had a major diplomatic presence in Kabul. You could say India was all in. And then, boom, August 2021 happened. As the Taliban swept back into power, India shut its embassy down and just cut all formal ties. For 4 long years, the only contact was this very cautious arm's-length engagement focused strictly on humanitarian aid. That 4-year freeze is exactly what makes this visit in October 2025 such a diplomatic thought of massive proportions.
What this really signals is a new, much more pragmatic approach from New Delhi. India has clearly decided that talking to the Taliban is a strategic necessity, even if they aren't going to formally recognize their government. So, what actually happened behind those closed doors?
The meeting itself was just full of careful symbolism. Take this detail, for example. There were no national flags on display. And that was no accident. It was a very deliberate move to avoid the whole controversial issue of whether to use the flag of the old republic or the Taliban's emirate. It's a small thing, but it speaks volumes about the diplomatic tightrope everyone was walking.
So what was actually on the table? Well, the agenda was packed with really practical concerns. It all centered on India's core security interests, boosting economic ties, improving regional connectivity, and, this is a big one, the potential reopening of India's embassy in Kabul. On the most critical point for India, which is of course security, the Taliban foreign minister gave a very direct assurance. For New Delhi, hearing that anti-India terror groups wouldn't be allowed to operate from Afghan soil was, without a doubt, a primary objective.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting, because this slide reveals a massive gap. During a press conference in Delhi, the Taliban delegation made these broad statements about rights for everyone. But at that very same event, they barred female journalists from even attending.
That single incident just shows you the deep ideological chasm that still remains. But despite these fundamental differences, the meeting itself is already sending shockwaves across the entire region.
This meeting creates a whole new power dynamic. I mean, for India, it's a way back into the game, a way to reassert its influence. That, in turn, creates a real dilemma for Pakistan, which now has to watch its main rival gain influence in what it's always considered its own backyard. And for the Taliban, well, this is a strategic pivot to get more partners and rely less on any one country.
And this whole shift really reveals the Taliban's ultimate goal here, to break out of its international isolation by showing it can be a reliable partner. But this new chapter is anything but certain.
Look, while this is a major step, the path to any kind of full diplomatic normalization is just littered with obstacles. The Taliban still craves formal recognition, but things like international sanctions, and especially its horrible record on human rights and the rights of women, those remain huge stumbling blocks for the global community.
What India is practicing here is a classic case of what's called realpolitik. It's a system of politics based on practical strategic needs, things like regional stability and security, rather than on whether you agree with someone's ideology. It's about dealing with the world as it is, not as you wish it would be.
And that really leaves us with the central defining question of this new era. How does a country like India engage with a regime like the Taliban to protect its own interests without looking like it's endorsing their ideology? Finding the answer to that is going to be the ultimate diplomatic challenge. Thanks so much for watching.